Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 5 of the 2023 Tomahawk Timeline Show. Yes, we have 2 series to cover. That's going to happen throughout a couple occasions this season. I'm going to try to keep every recording to a series each, but just ended up being a busier week for your guy. And we're going to cover 2 really great road series for the Braves this week. Talk about a 5-1 road trip that we're all going to recap here on this episode of the Tomahawk Timeline. How sweep it is out in Kansas City and a little get back on the road at San Diego as well. And it was a great week of Braves baseball. I hope that you guys all enjoyed watching the games as well as I did. And we're going to go ahead and jump into it. No wasting time. As always, you know how it works over here by now. Starting in the series opener in Kansas City, the Braves will play a Friday through Sunday weekend series out in the middle of the nation. You know, Atlanta already coming off a series sweep against the rival, the St. Louis Cardinals, within the same state. So we're seeing if Atlanta can keep up their same trend playing in Missouri. And I'll give you a hint. They did. Starting off the series opener, it was Charlie Morton versus Brady Singer. A really fun pitching matchup in its own right. And to start the game, Atlanta had 3 base runners for 3 runs. A leadoff single by Ronald Acuna Jr. that would be a lefty home run for Matt. Well, I guess everything's a lefty home run for Matt Olson, but lefty is what I'm trying to say. Hit it all the way down the left field line in one of the deeper parts of the ballpark. Kansas City, a place where the ball doesn't fly out a lot, and the Braves definitely put up a crooked number, adjusting that ratio for sure, hitting that one into the seats towards the Royals Hall of Fame plateau, putting Atlanta up 2-0 before you can blink an eye. And before you had a chance to blink a second time, Austin Riley would unload for the 100th home run of his career. So claps around to Austin Riley, and Ozzie Albies now standing at 100 home runs apiece at the time of this game. And it would be 3-0 Braves within 3 batters, and eyelash, any sort of term you'd like to say. And it was party, party, party. Later in the inning, Vaughn Grissom in his first major league at-bat of the season. Of course, if you guys joined us for the last episode, Arcia on the injured list with the fractured wrist for now, and Vaughn, of course, getting the call back up in the due time, would double down the right field line, scoring Eddie Rosario, who would also double in the inning. So it was all Atlanta to start this night, putting up a 4 spot in the first inning before sending Charlie Morton out there to go to work. And he would run into a little bit of first inning trouble via way of the rookie shortstop, Vaughn Grissom, who would have another throwing error. That was definitely the biggest knock on him going into spring training and throughout his time at second base last year. We could tell that if we were going to replace Dansby with this guy, there would definitely be a little bit of drop-off defensively, and that's why Ron Washington did all the work he could do with Vaughn this offseason down in New Orleans. And we would see it already coming back to bite the Braves in the first inning of the series opener, throwing one into the dugout, which would allow a runner to score automatically. That would be advancing home from third. And it would be 4-1 Atlanta. But not to worry, top of the second inning, Sam Hilliard would get that run right back with his first long ball of the year, putting Atlanta out 5-1 on a ball hit to deep right field. Kelly Cruel was interrupted mid-interview for it, and I don't think she was complaining one bit. Sean Murphy as well with a double into left center, scoring Acuna and Matt Olson. So instead of Acuna, working around Olson's bat, Olson had to tag around the bases with him, and it would be 7-1 Braves in the top of the second inning. I know I was having a lot of fun. Bottom of the fourth inning, it would be a sacrifice fly in foul territory. A great catch by Kevin Pillar to rob. I guess it would have been a foul ball in either way, but just a great way to make a catch there on a ball that he had no business getting to, especially at his age, but he would make it, would allow Edward Olivares to score from third pretty easily, but Atlanta traded the out for the run at that scenario because once again in the fifth inning, Sean Murphy would get it back for the Braves with his second home run of the season, hitting one to deep center field. You could definitely see, and we're going to talk about it this week, Sean Murphy and Sam Hilliard had themselves 2 hell of a weeks. 2 guys that performed really well for the Braves this week. The AL familiarity for Sean Murphy that weekend definitely warmed him up, and Sam Hilliard definitely getting some starts along with Eli White while we're waiting on Michael Harris to resume activity here this next week. They have both been great. Eli White's hits have not been there. The on-base percentage and the walking is where you want to be. He's giving you a glove. He's working counts. He's doing what you want. The results aren't there, but we have options for Eli White. Sam Hilliard has been everything we've asked for so far, and I love the pickup indeed as of right now. But continuing on with this game, it would be a hit by pitch with the bases loaded to make it 8-3 Atlanta in the fifth inning. So Charlie Morton working to a couple bases loaded jams, make us scared a couple times, but thankfully he would get out of this one unscathed, and I'm pretty sure that would end his night after 5 innings of 3-run ball, which we kind of saw throughout the first couple starts for Charlie Morton. Wasn't the greatest work in the world, but it wasn't terrible. He didn't, for $28 million, you'd like a little bit better with Charlie Morton's pedigree, but he's kept you in games, and that's exactly what the Braves ultimately want at the end of the day. And he gets paid what he does for that reason and for all the help he gives the young pitchers on this team. Top of the 6th inning, Acuna with a 3rd home run of the season out to left center field. 5 home runs tonight in the series opener for Atlanta on a ball that was nasty, a little slurred down at his knees. He would buckle on it and drive it into left center field out towards the Kansas City Fountains, putting Atlanta up 10-3, and he pimped it so hard that the Kansas City fans were giving him an ovation of boos. And you know what? I don't blame him. It was a night where, let's just say, Patrick Mahomes and company weren't there to bail out Kansas City that night. The football fans that are watching, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All jokes aside, Atlanta would win the series opener by a score of 10-3, out hitting Kansas City 11-7, out homering the guys 5-0. Total bases would be in favor of Atlanta 29-11. 2 errors on the night, one for Morton and one for Grissom, as we talked about earlier. But Acuna, another 3-hit. Now he just kept chugging along, and that was a great series opener for Atlanta. Moving on to game 2 of the series, I believe it was Bryce Elder in this matchup. It's been a week. I can't lie. It's been a couple of days since I've recorded an episode. So I'm kind of going over some of the stats with you guys as we go, but I'm going to try to bring them to you guys the best as possible. And yes, it was Bryce Elder versus Chris Bubich in the second game of the series. And we'll jump into it here on the box score. Another great night for the Atlanta offense. The win, of course, wasn't as easy as the series opener where you're up 7-1 in the blink of an eye, but another night where the Atlanta offense just ultimately dominated the competition. And we'll start in the top of the first inning where Atlanta has scored the first frame quite a lot this year. Has been very pleasant to see, and you haven't wanted to miss early action in the games at all for that reason. Sean Murphy would double on a ball into the gap, scoring Austin Riley. MJ Melendez would cut it off, and Atlanta would take the lead early. But bottom of the first inning, it would be Bryce Elder's first run given up after 13 innings pitched, 12 and a third, and then 2 outs in the bottom of the first inning. So he would go 13 innings to start the season without giving up a run. Unearned, earned, anything. There had been nobody crossing the plate on this man. Salvador Perez doubles off the very top of the wall, easily scoring Bobby Witt. If that ball's hit 4 more feet, or if the wind was gusting a different direction, it might have been 2-1 Kansas City on a Salvi bomb, who is a really good player. But it would be a 1-1 game. Also, a storyline for this game, it was supposed to be a 4:20 start on Jackie Robinson Day, but it was a little bit of a rain delay that afternoon, which pushed the start back 3 hours. So as someone who's not just a Braves fan, I got to watch the massacre that the Celtics put on the Hawks in game 1 that afternoon, seeing them down 30 points at halftime. I was wishing my Braves were on at the same time. I eventually did get that rest, but I eventually did get that wish, but I just wanted everybody to know the storyline and that fun fact of pain. So, of course, Atlanta would get that run back in the top of the third inning. And another Sean Murphy double. You saw the Oakland Athletic man last year and Matt Olson coming in doubling left and right to start the season. He got the whole McDonald's promo where Sean Murphy's on the pace to do the same thing this summer, which I would not complain at all. It would score Ronald Acuna Jr., move Austin Riley up to third. And Ozzie Albies would come through. He had been cold going into this week, but definitely started to turn things around, would have a 2-run single scoring both Riley and Murphy, putting Atlanta up 4-1 in the third inning, giving Bryce Elder a little bit of run support, and adding on to it once again, Sean Murphy in the 5th inning, a towering ball into left center field out towards the Fountains, similar spot where Ronald hit his in the opening night game, and it would be 5-1 Braves. Bottom of the 5th inning, of course, Kyle Isbell would hit a little dinker out to left field, scoring MJ Melendez and moving Bobby Witt up to third. That's the one thing with the Royals this year is that their bullpen's really solid for what it's worth. I think a lot of guys will be good trade candidates for them to get packages back this summer. They shipped off Whit Merrifield last year, who was the heart and soul of that franchise for a long time, and he's got a new home in Toronto. Is doing good things there. And I wouldn't be surprised with how good MJ Melendez is supposed to be at the catching position if Salvador Perez, the other heart and soul of the Kansas City team for the last decade, is going to be shipped on this summer. So Kansas City, I know, is not the greatest team at all in the world, in one of the weaker divisions, but I do like what their future holds for them. I like what Bobby Witt's bringing to the table. I like Nicky Lopez. I like MJ Melendez. I like some of their young pitchers. And I think they should be able to get a couple good trade packages back this summer if they can keep playing competitive baseball until July. And granted, they haven't done that so far yet, so a little knock on air for the boys back in Kansas City. But they would give Bryce Elder a little bit of heck here in the sixth inning. Of course, we mentioned them cutting it to a 5-3 deficit. Jackie Bradley Jr., out of all people, would line on the ball with 2 outs in the inning to make it 5-3, and he would limit the damage there. And I believe that would be it for Bryce Elder. He might have gotten an out or an at bat in the 7th inning to face, but I'm pretty sure that was it. 3 runs, 6 innings, and for what it was worth, and a cold, delayed start for a rookie. Great stuff, and we'll definitely talk about him again later in the episode, talking about his next matchup, which is tomorrow night on this night of recording. I'm recording this on the 20th, and of course the Braves play the Astros this next weekend. Top of the 8th, though, Atlanta would get some needed insurance. Matt Olson with a bases-loaded walk, advancing everybody up a base and making it 6-3 before Sean Murphy would tack on another, bases-loaded walk. So, the Oakland guys go back-to-back and add 2 runs to the scoreboard for Atlanta before Ozzie Albies would have put the dagger in the coffin with another 2-run single, scoring Ronald and Olson. Sean Murphy would be held up to third and would get stranded there, but it didn't matter. Atlanta would hold on to win 9-3. I think you finally got to see clean innings out of Kirby Yates and Joey Jimenez in the 9th innings of those ball games. Cleaning up some guys that were supposed to be high leverage relievers. Haven't really seen the results so far. The spin rates are where you want, but the results aren't there. And getting them some low leverage relief opportunities to get their feet together, get them on a roll is exactly what we've wanted to see. And Atlanta would take the first 2 games of the series, this one by a final score of 9-3, as we once mentioned, out hitting Kansas City 14-11, and the only homer would be the Sean Murphy one that we talked about in the 5th inning. A lot of base running. 19 total bases to 17 for the Royals, and both would leave 10 on base. No errors, so a cleanly played defensive ball game, and Atlanta would go for the series sweep that Sunday afternoon. And a lot of Braves fans know this, including myself. Atlanta was not the greatest team in day games last year, especially in the second half of the season. So it was a trend that we were hoping the Braves could get rid of right away to start the 2023 campaign. And they had an opportunity to do that on Sunday afternoon, which was a pretty day in Kansas City, from what I hear. And Atlanta would, of course, the Braves never lose, as Frank the Tank likes to say, would get a big 5-4 victory that evening. A very stressful game for the folks watching, knowing that the Mets and the Phillies also won that afternoon. We'll recap it right here, of course, with a Matt Olson triple in the top of the 3rd inning. It was Kyle Wright versus Zach Greinke in this game. So old versus new, second-year Major League starter versus future Hall of Famer in possibly last season of his career. So another fun matchup in its own right. But as I just mentioned, Matt Olson with a 2-run triple in the top of the 3rd inning. If Edward Olivares would have played it cleanly, it might have not even been a hit, and Atlanta might not have scored anybody that inning, but it was a ball that skipped under his glove, charging in too fast and realizing he was not going to get there, and it would squirt through his legs for a triple. Matt Olson, of course, not able to make it all the way around. Brandon Gaudin had the original thought that he might have. If it was Ozzie, if it was Ronald, if it was Michael Harris, if it was even a guy like Grissom, maybe we would have saw it inside the park home run, but Matt Olson settled for the 2-run triple because Austin Riley would get him in via the sacrifice fly and at bat later, and Atlanta would put up a 3 spot in the 3rd inning, which was great to see. Bottom of the 3rd inning, Atlanta would trade a double play for 2 outs for a run. It would be bases loaded to start the bottom of the 3rd for Kyle Wright, which a lot of people remember. His first start versus Cincinnati, the 3rd inning was the issue for him as well. It was either the 3rd or the 4th, but he had cruise control for a couple innings before running into issues, loading the bases very early in the game and that inning. But it was a different story this time around. Bobby Witt is definitely a guy that's very hard to double up, but it was a 5-4-3 around the horn, and Atlanta was able to trade 2 runs for 1 out and limit the damage there. So bases loaded, nobody out, only led to 1 run, and Atlanta would lead 3-1 going into the 4th inning, where, of course, Ozzie Albies would get the run right back on his 3rd home run of the season, 101 of his career, out towards the Royals bullpen, and put Atlanta up 4-1. 6th inning is when things got a little bit dicey. Kyle Wright was taken out after 5 2/3. Michael Tonkin, who's been great in long relief this year, was not his best outing, definitely not the leverage he's worked in, and maybe that's a little bit to it. I wasn't absolutely sure what he got an inning and 2/3 in this game, being that the whole bullpen was available based on the Braves blowouts the last 2 nights where pitchers were able to go 6+ innings in those outings. So wasn't, I don't think, the Snit's brightest decision of the year, and it definitely did come to cost him. Of course, the first pitch that Tonkin would throw to Franmil Reyes would be an RBI single, scoring Salvador Perez and making it a 4-2 Braves lead, and he would get out of it there, but a clean 7th inning for Kansas City pitching would allow Vinny Pasquantino, the Italian brethren, to hit a long home run into the right field corner opposite spot where Olsen hit it in the first inning of the opening night of the series, like we talked about earlier, for a home run to tie the game at 4 apiece. A slider with 2 strikes and 2 outs that hung way too far over the plate for Tonkin's liking and for Tromp's liking, who was catching behind the plate that night. And it would come back to bite Atlanta, and the game would be tied at 4 apiece. 8th inning, Atlanta had a leadoff double from Ronald Acuna Jr. off bearded Aroldis Chapman. Olsen and Riley would, of course, strike out, and Atlanta would not get anything there. But Nick Anderson with a clean bottom of the 8th would keep Atlanta right where they needed to be going into the top of the 9th inning. And Ozzie Albies with a double in the top of the 9th, barely missing a home run by about 5 feet. He hit it to about the same spot of the ballpark that he did earlier, but the wind had changed direction, and it would keep the ball in play. And of course, Vaughn Grissom, the troublemaker, his middle infield brother, would have to come through on a pitch that hit right over the middle of the plate, but he would stay back on it, make good adjustments, and hit it in the right field past a diving first baseman, allowing Ozzie Albies to come around and score. Jackie Bradley Jr. would have no play at the plate, and Atlanta would go up 5-4. And talk about a very quick 1-2-3 save for AJ Minter to complete the Braves sweep on Sunday afternoon. He's had that one bad outing against Cincinnati, but in that outing alone, he blew the save, but he did not blow the game completely. He would only let Cincinnati tie it. Atlanta would go on to walk it off. So very, very proud of what AJ Minter has done to start the season. He's got 2 years left in his contract, but just filling in for what Iglesias to start the year has been absolutely astounding to him. And I hope that he's able to keep it up for a couple more weeks because we're going to need it. Atlanta, of course, winning this game 5-4, 7 hits and 1 homer to each side. Atlanta with 4 extra total bases than Kansas City, 14-10. Only 1 stolen base in this ballgame. It would belong to the Braves. Atlanta would leave 4 on base to Kansas City, 6, and 1 error to each, and it would move Atlanta on to 12-4 in the season, Kansas City to 4-12. As we move our next gear, talking about the Monday through Wednesday series in San Diego. And as we do that, I'll make a point. Watching the Sunday Night Baseball game, it was hilarious because they had a segment, on the K-Rod telecast, the alternate version, kind of like the Manning cast of Sunday Night Baseball. They had Bobby Witt Jr. and his father on Sunday night during that Rangers Astros game. And I made a tweet that definitely pissed off a lot of Kansas City Royals, stating that, it's embarrassing that you get your butt whooped on a weekend, get swept, and then you show yourself on ESPN that night. And man, I know there's a lot of Kansas City sports fans just because of how big the Chiefs fan base is. I know that there is definitely Royals fans out there. I'm not discounting that, but it was definitely interesting to see how angry a lot of them got at me. And I apologize for those of you that are listening. As a fan that's been a Falcons fan and a Hawks fan for a long time, the Braves are the only well-run franchise in my life, just like the Chiefs are to you. And if you're listening, I do apologize. I do know your exact pain on how great one organization can be in your life and the other ones aren't. So if I did piss you guys off saying that I was trash talking a little too much, I do apologize. But I will say, I do see Chiefs fans run their mouth quite a lot when they know how good they are. So I'll leave it at that. But switching gears, talking about the Atlanta series most recently that wrapped up yesterday afternoon between the Braves and the Padres, a rematch from the home opening weekend where Atlanta would, of course, walk off the home opener and San Diego would come up and Will Smith slap us in the face for the last 3, taking the series 3-1. Sure, you could talk about how Atlanta threw out rookies in that matchup, but Braves missed Fernando Tatis this year. I mean, we'll probably see him in October, but for those fans that are talking about San Diego winning the tiebreaker this year, and that could come back to bite us, so the Braves definitely have to play ball and finish better than the Padres. That'll be a point of emphasis for the rest of the season. But the fans that you see delegating the Braves tie-breaking loss due to throwing out rookie pitchers that weekend, the Braves missed Fernando Tatis Jr., who at healthy is still a top 10 player in baseball. The Roids thing was over. We'll talk about it on a different episode later in the season on the Long Ball podcast for those of you that are listening. But that's my stance on that. So we'll recap the series. Wasn't a lot of action in this game at all. It was a Ronald Acuna leadoff single to start the game. I think he's 12 of 20 this year. And the 20 games or the 19 games the Braves have played, I'm pretty sure he's 12 of 19 in the first at bat this season. So he's been on base almost 60% of the time for Matt Olson and Austin Riley to start the game. And that's why Atlanta has started 1-0 so many times, because you've given opportunities for Olson, Riley, and even guys like Sean Murphy or Ozzie Albies in the first inning to drive in runs. And it starts up top. I don't think there's a world where you can ever take Ronald out of the leadoff spot now. His power's back, his legs are back, and he just does so much for you guys. And even the 9-hole is benefiting from it. You saw Orlando Arcia before he got hurt getting a lot of pitches to hit because he was hitting in front of Acuna in the lineup. 9 feeds 1, bottom feeds the top, and it's worked great for the Braves. That's why he's been a leadoff hitter his whole career, and I don't expect that to change. But, of course, Austin Riley depositing one into the Ironworks building down in the left field corner for a 2-run home run, his 4th of the year, 101st of his career, so him and Ozzie Albies tying themselves right back up. It would put Atlanta up 2-0 for Max Fried's first start back since opening day. Of course, we remember his gem he was throwing on opening day before having to cover first in the cold and having a little bit of hamstring tightness. Would go on the injured list. Was Atlanta being fully precautious. He didn't need any rehab starts, anything of that sort, but was glad to see the precaution the Braves did take, and he came out and threw an absolute gem. Only 5 innings of 80 pitches, but I think he only gave up 1 or 2 hits in the 80 pitches. The curveball on Max Fried that night was disgusting, I'll tell you. It was definitely very fun to watch. Wasn't a lot more scoring in the game other than the Austin Riley 2-run home run. I will say Riley grounded into a double play in the top of the 5th inning. Atlanta had bases loaded, nobody out to start the 5th inning, and it would be a Matt Olson strikeout and an Austin Riley double play to end that threat, and Atlanta had a chance to blow that game open. They were unsuccessfully able to do so. But Manny Machado in the bottom of the 8th inning would have the hardest hit ball of the Padres all night, but Jesse Chavez in the Braves uniform, which is his super suit, would have him ground into a 4-3 Ozzie Albies double play. It was the biggest threat the Padres had all night. I'm pretty sure you had Ha-Seong Kim or Jake Cronenworth at first base. Soto was on second. There have been a couple guys reach via walk on Jesse Chavez, who's had a great start to his year so far. In 10-plus appearances, he has not given up a run. Him and Dylan Lee are the only 2 pitchers this year to have 10-plus appearances already this season and not give up an earned run. Those are guys who weren't even supposed to be in the Braves bullpen potentially to start the year, and they made the team after great spring trainings, of course, leading off what they did last year, and they have been everything the Braves have asked with Iglesias, with McHugh, and with others out to start the season. So just talk about the depth this Braves team has. That's why they've gotten off to the start. They've had the best start the Braves have had since the 2013 season. Best in a decade. We're used to bad Aprils around here, and it's been great to see the exact opposite. But talking about Manny Machado hitting the hardest ball of the night for San Diego for a 4-3 Ozzie Albies double play to retire the side. Big pump of the fist from Jesse Chavez, a guy who doesn't show a lot of emotion, would do in that scenario, and Atlanta would still lead 2-0 going to the bottom of the 9th, where we talked about A.J. Minter pitching in Sunday's affair. He was available on Monday night to start the series, and he would get a clean save once again. His 4th of the year. Atlanta would go on to win this one 2-0. I had to talk about other storylines in this game because the Austin Riley home run was all that we saw in this game, and you wouldn't have thought so based on all the barrels that the teams were having in the first inning. But yes, the Braves would get their 7th consecutive victory in this one, going to 13-4, beating the Padres 2-0. I think the second shutout for the Braves this year, out hitting them 7-6. The one homer, of course, was the Austin Riley homer, the only scoring in this game. 12 total bases to San Diego's 7. San Diego would have a stolen base. Atlanta would not attempt any, and the Braves would leave 2 more on base. 8-6, no errors. So a clean played game, and Atlanta would get the series opening win. A good way to get a little get back going into that series, and they would hope that the same luck would continue. And I'll tell you, for the most part, the second night, Tuesday, was a very identical showing to what we saw in the Monday series opener. As we pull up the wrap here, it was Spencer Strider versus Blake Snell. a rematch of the home opener, the one game Atlanta won in that series. So I was excited to see how things would play out. Blake Snell, of course, I believe in the last year of his contract coming over from Tampa Bay, and we all know what Spencer Strider did last year getting his contract, making the starting rotation, finishing second in the Rookie of the Year voting behind Michael Harris II. And Atlanta would start things very early. Kevin Pillar got the start, and I love this because, A, he's a great platoon guy to have on the roster with Eddie Rosario. They go hand in hand with one another. And not only is it great platoon for lefties, his career split line versus Blake Snell was tremendous. From their times in Toronto and Tampa Bay, there's a reason that Kevin Pillar got starts and RBIs against Blake Snell in both of the matchups. In the second inning, he would get things started via ground rule double that would score Sean Murphy, would strand Vaughn Grissom at third, and I don't like that it was a ground rule double because it would have easily scored Vaughn Grissom. It did not. Atlanta would leave those guys on base. Blake Snell would work out of the jam, but Atlanta would have the lead regardless. And in the fourth inning, Sean Murphy would tag on a home run of his own, his fourth of the season, deep into the San Diego sky, avoiding the marine layer, hitting it in the left center field instead of right where the wind is blowing crazy. And the only way to hit home runs like that is Schwarber-like in the playoffs where he hit him 480 down the line. And it would stay 2-0 for the longest time. Atlanta would work out of a seventh inning jam. I'm pretty sure Strider went 6 innings in this affair with 9 or 10 strikeouts, so a lot better than what we saw the previous 2 outings where he went 5 innings of 3 runs, where the pitch count was a little high for his life and the velocity was a little down. He kind of went back to what was working for him last year. And he definitely got squeezed a lot in this game, a lot of strike threes and a lot of strike twos that were not called what they were, forcing him to do a little extra. But he would usually end up getting the strikeout either way. Wasn't a lot of balls in play for Strider that night unless it was a base hit. But the Padres only had 4 hits in this affair in general. I forget who came on for the 7th inning. I know in the series opener after Fried came out, Dylan Lee pitched 2 innings, which was great because with Lucas Leckie on the IL, which we'll talk about after the series, it was great for Dylan Lee to do what he did in the 2 outings he did out in San Diego because he knew you only had A.J. Minter as a lefty in the bullpen as a closer. So you couldn't really pull him from what he was doing. But moving to the 8th inning where Atlanta would get plenty of insurance. Ozzie Albies swinging at ball 5, and if you watch the game, you know exactly what I mean. It was a 3-0 count, swinging a ball at his ankles for strike 1, and would take a 3-1 pitch in the right-hand batter's box out to left center field, to the left of the batter's eye, clanking it into the metalworks for a 3-run home run. I let out a big sigh of relief in this affair. Ozzie Albies putting the Braves up 5-0 in the 8th inning, and it turned the game on its head from what it was the night before, a 2-0 Atlanta lead pretty much the entire game, keeping San Diego off base. And you knew eventually San Diego was going to score. You weren't going to hold them scoreless for 16-plus innings like Atlanta had. It was very crazy to see the Braves pitching do that. But that's what happens when you face Strider and Fried and not Dodd and Schuster, as we talked about in the opener. But Ozzie would have a tattoo of a home run, putting the Braves up 5-0. San Diego would finally get their first run of the series with 2 outs in the 8th inning. It would be a force out for Juan Soto, an RBI to score Trent Grisham, which it was funny to see Trent Grisham and Vaughn Grissom on the same scorecard. It was a little fun to play the name game. I know Grant McCauley and Kevin McAlpin, too, the 680, the fan Braves workers, were making jokes about it. So that would be the only run for San Diego. But in the 9th inning, Matt Olson with another 3-run home run for the Braves this inning, his 6th of the season, into the marine layer, just like Kyle Schwarber was in the NLCS last year. An absolute missile. Brandon Gaudin could only say, well, that's another 3-run homer, scoring Hilliard and Acuna, putting Atlanta up 8-1. And what another bad outing for Nabil Crismatt, a guy whose stuff is all there. The frame rates, the spin rates, everything on the Baseball Savant page is what you want to see out of Crismatt, but the results just aren't getting cut. And I think a lot of San Diego fans, who I talk to a lot on Twitter, are very tired of running him out there. But Atlanta would go on to win the second game of the series and would go for an eventual chance to sweep Wednesday afternoon by winning this one 8-1, out hitting San Diego 8-4, out homering them 3-0, tripling their total bases 18-6, no stolen bases for either side, and no errors either. So a clean play ball game. San Diego would leave 2 extra on base, 7 to Atlanta's 5. The big storyline for San Diego going into the series finale was 2 things. A, trying to win the series, season series versus the Braves, going for the tiebreaker, because if those of you that remember from the Mets chased last year, there is no longer a game 163 for scenarios like that. It's the tiebreaker. And being that the series was tied 3-3 going into the final game that we will see San Diego this season, even though Atlanta had won 8 in a row and they were playing great ball and they were in first place, you still wanted to see Atlanta get this win, get the day game mojo going, everything along those lines, and we'll see if they had the opportunity to do that. But the thing that Padres fans were looking for, and we're seeing it, I saw it as I was recording this episode tonight, was Fernando Tatis Jr. making his first appearance back Thursday afternoon. As I mentioned earlier, the Braves just missing him this year. Acuna and Tatis didn't play against each other at all last year because Acuna was dealing with nagging injuries during the San Diego series last year. The first one was around this time where he hadn't fully come back from the ACL, and then I think we played him again the month of May, and he was on that second IL stint dealing with the inflammation. So it was fun to see at least Acuna get back out there against the great team that San Diego is. But next year and possibly even this postseason, we'll get to see the full effect with Acuna, with Michael Harris coming back, along with, Juan Soto being in form, with Fernando being on the field. Like, both of these teams are so freaking good. And I hope that we do get to see rematches down the line, because I think a lot of fans are tired of seeing the haze that the Mets and the Dodgers get with all their spending. Even though the Dodgers cut their luxury tax this year. Either way, we're going to talk about the series finale out in San Diego, Wednesday afternoon, 1:20 local first start, 4:30 start in Atlanta. And a game that was similar to the series opener. You didn't see a lot of offense at all. Atlanta had bases loaded in the top of the third inning, and Austin Riley and Matt Olson with an opportunity to knock in a guy via a force out, a ground ball, a sacrifice fly, a grand slam, anything to get the Braves on the board against Nick Martinez, Team USA pitcher, and both of them would strike out. Nick Martinez would work out of the jam. A gem he would throw this day. And Charlie Morton would be on the mound for the Braves, so it'd be another opportunity for Juan Soto to get some work against his father. Charlie Morton has not had a lot of success against Juan Soto so far in his career, and in the first at bat, Juan Soto would hit a can of corn out to center field for Sam Hilliard to take it in. But second at bat, Juan Soto would break out of his trouble. He had been on base a lot in the series for what it was worth, even though he has been, quote, all over the place. Air quotes for anybody that's watching on the video. Would hit a ball into right center field, avoiding the marine layer, putting San Diego up 1-0, and would allow a couple other guys to reach base that inning. I believe he had Bogarts and Cronenworth on third that inning, working around Ha-Seong Kim and Austin Nola. And if Austin Nola is getting a hit on you in a high leverage situation, not a good look for Charlie Morton, but he was able to work out of the jam, limit the damage to 1, and Atlanta would only trail 1-0 after 4 innings. And both guys would just continue to settle in. Charlie Morton would throw 2 more scoreless innings, 1 run of 6 innings. Great performance, exactly what you want to see out of Charlie Morton after how he started the year and the issues that we saw last year for his age catching up to him, the leg giving him nagging pain all year. And Atlanta would not be able to give him any support. The 8th inning, Sam Hilliard, it was either the 7th or the 8th inning, Sam Hilliard would rob a 2-run home run from Manny Machado. Very Adam Jones-esque from the World Baseball Classic in 2017, where he would rob a ball in Petco Park off Manny Machado's bat in right center field on that shorter porch out there. And he would do the same thing. The 6'4" frame would jump up, grab the ball, it would bobble, and he would still hold on and make the catch and rob Manny Machado of putting San Diego up 3-0. Tremendous catch. I mean, he has done everything that you've asked during Michael Harris's absence. And when Harris gets back, it's going to be a question on if Hilliard is going to continue to be your everyday left fielder, and if you maybe want to move Travis and Eddie into more of a DH platoon role if they want to finally cut ties with Ozuna when everybody's back and healthy. Eli White got options. He'll be sent back down. Chadwick Schramm, same thing for Travis Arnott. But, yeah, it's just another piece of depth for the Braves. They're going to have a chance to platoon Travis and Eddie and the DH scenario, whoever's hotter, and the same thing for pretty much Kevin Pillar, Sam Hilliard, and Eddie Rosario out in left field. So plenty of options galore. When Arcia gets back, you're going to have an opportunity to field him if Grissom's bat is the only thing of him playing. But to speak on Sam Hilliard, he would actually have a leadoff single to start the 8th inning off I don't remember exactly what pitcher it was, but Nick Martinez had 7 scoreless, which was absolutely astounding. I did not see it coming based on how the Braves have been barreling people up the last couple of days, but shout out to him. He threw an absolute gem. 7 scoreless, exactly what you want to see, especially when the guy behind you is throwing 6 innings of 1-run ball. Sam Hilliard would have a leadoff single to greet the San Diego bullpen with a cheer. he would advance to second after 3 or 4 stolen base attempts. Kevin Pillar kept fouling off pitches, but Hilliard would eventually advance to second base, giving Atlanta an opportunity to drive him in with one away, flipping the lineup over. Pillar would strike out. Acuna would swing a ball 4 for a strikeout for 2-way. Matt Olson would also strike out. So the bullpen would come up, giving up the leadoff single, allowing him to advance to second, and they would buckle down, not allowing Atlanta to get the tying hit, because the base hit would have scored him. And it kept the game 1-0 going into the ninth, and it was Josh Hader time. No Freddie Freeman, of course, on the Braves anymore, as we know, and he's the guy that had the big success for us against against Josh Hader over the years with his time in Milwaukee. And we saw it in the NLDS last year. Freddie had some hits in the ninth inning against Josh Hader during that other National League series. Austin Riley would start off the ninth inning with a leadoff walk, but that would be all we'd get. Sean Murphy would line out to Trent Grisham, a hard hit ball, lefty-righty, but Trent Grisham would get there. Azuna would come in to pinch hit. He did not start in this affair. He did have another hit in this series, which I will mention. Azuna's up to 5 hits on the season. 2 of them are homers. And, it was not the prettiest of at-bats. It definitely did not help him. He was down 1-2 after taking 3 balls, but 2 of them were called strikes that were not in the zone. He would fall down 1-2 and eventually would full out a slider for strike 3. But I will give him his flowers. Where it is due there, he would go to battle, and it would eventually come up short. And Hader would go on to get the save, and the Padres would go on to take the season series, salvaging a sweep of Atlanta, but they would get their little get back. Finishing a road trip 5-1, which is great. Any chance you can do that. It doesn't matter who you play. Sweeping Kansas City and also taking 2 or 3 against a team that had just done well against you in your own ballpark. Great week from Atlanta. It was it's always frustrating to see your team lose, knowing that the Mets also won that day and we lost the season series, but you can't win every game. Atlanta had an 8-game win streak going into the affair, and they did everything they could to salvage that game. Just didn't get any opportunities to roll their way. Juan Soto was the hero of the afternoon. The solo home run would be the final score of 1-0. 6 hits for the Padres, 4 for the Braves. Total bases, San Diego would have 10 to Atlanta's 4. Atlanta would have 2 stolen bases, so they would have opportunities to get guys in. They just were never able to. They loaded the bases twice, but couldn't bring anybody in. Both teams would leave 6 on base and no errors for either squad. And so that would end that series. So before we wrap things up, we'll talk about the latest news, what's next. So, of course, coming up this weekend, we have a rematch of the 2021 World Series. Once again, the 2 reigning World Series champions meeting in Atlanta for the 2nd year in a row. Hunter Brown and Bryce Elder on Friday night. So a fun little matchup to start the series off. I don't know if Bryce Elder is technically still considered a rookie because of his service time last year, but I don't think he has a full year of service time, so I'm still going to call him a rookie in air quotes against the Astros rookie who's supposed to be nasty in a year or two. Another reason that they were okay letting Justin Verlander walk away this offseason going to the Mets. Hunter Brown versus Bryce Elder on Friday night will be an absolute treat. Saturday night is Christian Javier versus Kyle Wright. I'm pretty sure we saw that matchup in the World Series a couple years ago anyway. And that'll be interesting to see how both guys are fare. They both haven't had the greatest of starts, only a couple for each, so we'll see if they're able to fine-tune their games on Saturday night. And Sunday afternoon, I'm pretty sure it's I said it was Framber versus Kyle Wright. It's Christian Javier versus Max Fried on Sunday afternoon. I'm surprised it's on an ESPN telecast or even some sort of national game on Sunday, but I'm sure just because the Astros have already been on 2 ESPN telecasts and the Braves won, that they don't want to keep picking up the same teams. They'll have a chance to broadcast this game every year now just because, you see everybody every year. So that's what's upcoming this weekend. You see Kansas City. Then the Marlins come to town for 4. You'd like to take 3, especially if you do end up dropping the series this weekend. Before you go up to Queens for the first time, a 4-game series, I believe, to start the month of May. So that's what's upcoming for the Braves. At home this weekend versus Houston. I'll be there tomorrow night on Friday, so I'll have a chance to see everything in person, which I can't wait. I love going to Braves games. Generally, I grew up at Turner Field, so a guy who just, if you couldn't tell, I love the Braves. And, that following week, they, of course, play Miami Monday through Thursday at home before going up to Queens for, I'm sure it's a Friday through Monday long weekend trip, so it'll be interesting to see how Atlanta fares. Regarding the injury list, I'm sure that Colin McHugh is going to be activated this week and come back. I don't know who the Braves are going to retroact back to the minors because I have a hard feeling it'll be Michael Tonkin just because he has been great at what he's done. I don't know if you're going to be able to keep him through waivers, keep him on the 40-man roster. The Braves haven't had that long relief guy that we had last year in Jackson Stevens, or even in years prior, that have been able to mop up and clean up short starts, blowout games, extra innings, anything of that sort. And that's what Michael Tonkin's done. He's had one bad outing so far, and it was that Kansas City game where the Braves would end up having his back, winning the game either way. I don't know if he's going to be the guy that's going to get DFA'd. And if you're looking at anybody else in the bullpen, who else is it going to be? Not Jesse Chavez. He's had 10 scoreless innings to start the year. Dylan Lee, no. AJ Minter's been closing for you. You still have to pay Kirby Yates, and he's starting to come around. Same with Joey Jimenez, so it's not going to be those guys. Same with Nick Anderson. Let's just put it this way. It's a good problem to have. I don't think it can be Lucas Lecky just because he's already on the injured list. So we'll see what the Braves are able to come up with if they want to send down a starter. But even in that sort, you have Michael Soroka like 2 or 3 weeks away. So knock on wood as well for him. But Braves rotation is finally coming back into form. Of course, we saw Kyle Wright make his first 2 starts back from injury. We'll see his third on Saturday night, as I hinted to a minute ago. Max Fried will get his second start back from rehab on Sunday afternoon in a game that I have to believe will probably be a rubber match. It'll be good to see us in that affair. But yeah, for Lucas Lecky, his lefty stuff hasn't been where we wanted to yet. So I wonder if there's a little bit of inflammation, which I think is what he was labeled as going to the injured list. So we'll see what comes of it. But ultimately not the start we wanted. But it'll be good to get Travis Arnott and Colin McHugh back at some point this week. Michael Harris, I think, is a little bit slower along than what we had hoped. But as I said earlier, thankfully Eli White and Sam Hilliard have done what you needed to out there in center field, and Sam Hilliard as well with the bat. You haven't really missed a Michael Harris for what it's worth too much, and I'm realizing I'm saying that phrase quite a bit for what it's worth. So apologize for you that are listening and tired of that phrase. And lastly, of course, Raciel Iglesias is, I think, about to start his rehab during this week. So maybe we'll have an update on it by the time I film the next Tomahawk Timeline, probably, Sunday night or Monday afternoon after that Astros series, where I'm going to predict the Braves win 2 of 3. Once again, I didn't have a chance to predict the San Diego series. I did have a feeling we would get back and win 2 of 3. I have been right on every series so far on us winning or losing, except for the San Diego one. I had us splitting that one. San Diego did take 3 of 4. But yes, I had us taking 2 of 3 in Kansas City and St. Louis and Cincinnati. And we ended up sweeping all 3 of those series. So I'm definitely giving the Braves maybe a little bit not even enough lenience so far for what it's worth. There I go again. But sorry this episode dragged on a little bit. The season's starting to move along, so there's a lot more to talk about as we go. I'm uploading to a couple of different platforms now, so I'm trying to give the audience as much to listen to, enough to get a grip of what's happening. But of course, yes, the Braves are 14-5, now officially a game and a half up on first place. The Mets would go on to win their series opener in San Francisco tonight with Kodai Senga on the mound. Talk about how their pitching staff is rattled as well with Scherzer for what Scherzer now on the injured list and for illegal substances, which was absolutely bashful. He did nothing wrong. But the Mets pitching rotation, which they put a lot of money into this offseason, Quintana IL, Verlander still on the IL. Like, David Peterson is their second best pitcher, and he's a guy that's bounced between AAA and Syracuse and Queens his whole career. So it'll be interesting to see if Max Scherzer is even able to come back for that Brave series, which is in retroact about 10 days from now. So I don't even know if it's likely that we see Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander while we're up in Queens. So a great opportunity for the Braves to keep on the metal. And it's definitely going to be harder this weekend to hold off the Mets, knowing that they're out in San Francisco and we're playing Houston. For the most part, it has been a very even played schedule. When they've played Oakland, we play Kansas City. When we've played LA, when we played San Diego, they played LA. It has been very even keel to start the year. We played DC, they played Miami. So there hasn't been a lot of chance for separation. And thankfully the Braves are ahead last year, and the Phillies are struggling. So it's really only a 2-team race right now. The Marlins over 162. I'm not really worried about them. Maybe they'll take some games from us here and there. Of course, you're not going to beat them 13 times, but I'm not worried about the Nationals or the Marlins. Over a full season one, Miami is definitely better than what they were. The Phillies have to get going, but they lost again to the Rockies by a final score of 5-0 tonight to drop another one. I think they split with the White Sox this weekend, another team that hasn't won a series yet. So, yeah, a team that maybe is being shown that they're not the greatest built for regular season. And, they're missing Harper. They're missing Ranger Suarez. Of course, Hoskins is out for the season. A lot of things going wrong for the Phillies, and a team that's payroll, I think, is third or fourth. So right there with Cohen and with the Steinbrenners and with the Padres, what Freller's doing over there. So yeah, definitely interesting to see. I know a lot of people that I'm uploading this to on the Hardcore Sports Network are big Phillies fans. I think y'all will get it together, but might be a couple months. So just stick with them. The Sixers got John Soldan, and I know y'all got the Eagles draft the next week, and I'm excited for the Falcons in that front. But enough rambling from me. I got to go upload this to both platforms, and I definitely enjoyed talking to you guys tonight. Sorry for the late episode. Of course, I'll try to get them out after every series throughout the year, but there are going to be weeks where I do it after every other. You'll never see me do 3 series at once. That's never going to be but I got a couple texts wondering where the series went. It's not going anywhere. I'm enjoying it. I just had to take a couple days while I was busy and just eat my lumps and connect the Kansas City and the San Diego series together. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed filming it myself, and I'll probably premiere this at some point Friday afternoon. So if you guys are watching it, the Braves will probably be a couple hours away from seeing Houston, or maybe their first game is just wrapped up when you're watching this. I hope they won. Again, I'll be there in attendance, and I hope to see any of you guys there as well. But yeah, that's it for me this evening. I hope you guys enjoyed your time. Of course, if you want to follow me on Twitter, my name is Blake Newsom. Twitter at Newsom Sports ATL, NEWSOM. I tweet a lot of Braves in-game stuff along with the Falcons and the Hawks. But if you guys want some in-game Twitter stuff, I am definitely a follow, and I will follow you back. So yeah, I hope to see you guys later. Enjoy your weekend, and let's go Braves. Let's continue the run we're on. Tomahawk Timeline. We'll be back after the weekend. Have a good night, everybody.